Hey Marcia, yes, our kids are being asked to learn to read earlier and earlier. Hi, my name is Angela. I'm an unschooler with 4 children ages 21 down to 13. I also have a minor in elementary education, and I taught science before I had kids. My husband is a public high school special education teacher. This is in response to my video where I said that compulsory education used to not begin until age 7 and kids weren't taught to read until around then. But in the last 25 years, there's really been a push to have kids read earlier, and it's been detrimental for a lot of kids. Children who are forced to learn to read earlier, ages 4 and 5, actually show no long-term benefits, and they do show lower reading comprehension, higher levels of stress, less enjoyment of reading, and myriad other problems. This was actually already a hot-button issue when I was taking my elementary education classes back in 2000. The push to get kids to learn to read earlier is not the best educational practice, and it's driven very much by parents and the popular culture more than by educators. Many children are not ready to learn to read at 4 to 5. I mean, this is part of the reason that we're unschoolers, because a lot of things are forced on kids in public education when they're not developmentally ready to learn those concepts yet, and it can cause long-term discouragement. If you have access to an academic search engine, I definitely recommend this study. Forcing kids to learn to read earlier can actually cause long-term problems. This study and others have shown that the increasingly narrow emphasis in kindergarten on isolated reading and math skills is detrimental even to the children who succeed at them at that age, and is especially harmful to the children labeled as failures. Academic demands in kindergarten and first grade are considerably higher today than 20 years ago, and they continue to escalate. This push for higher performance has much more to do with our capitalist society and a demand for hyperproductivity than it does following actual child development. Kids get flagged as failures, they get flagged as being unsuccessful, and it's harmful to their long-term success as readers. Much like when kids learn to walk and speak and have other developmental milestones in childhood, there is a range of what is normal, and not all kids will be ready to learn to read at age 5, and some will be ready earlier. Let's just take an anecdotal example of my family. My eldest child was hyperlexic and learned to read before she was 2 on her own. I did nothing. She was later diagnosed with autism. Hyperlexia is very common in kids with autism. My second 2 children both have dyslexia. They became really proficient readers around ages 7 and 8 respectively, and they required a lot of educational support and using Orton-Gillingham methods. My youngest child, who's now 13, learned to read on his own between ages 4 and 5. I didn't have to do anything except read books aloud to him. One of the beautiful things about unschooling is that it is tailored for each individual child according to their interests and capabilities and stage of development. There's no pressure for homogeneity and no push to follow a set curriculum. That means kids learn things when they are developmentally ready to learn them, and they learn them much quicker and retain them much better, without all of the psychological and emotional turmoil of being labeled a failure because you couldn't learn to read at 5.